Have you ever just stopped and wondered why we even have governments? I mean, why do we all agree to follow rules and pay taxes and basically give up a little bit of our own personal freedom? It's a massive question, and the answer really gets to the heart of how we build a society in the first place. Okay, so let's kick things off with a little thought experiment. Just imagine, for a second, a world with absolutely no rules, no laws, and nobody around to enforce them. What would that actually look like? At first glance, it might sound amazing, total freedom. You'd have the freedom to do whatever you wanted, whenever you wanted. But, and this is a huge but, so would everybody else. Your freedom to enjoy your stuff is suddenly met with their freedom to just take it from you. Your unlimited freedom is now in a head-on collision with theirs.
Well, philosophers actually have a term for this kind of world without a government, a way to really dig into this problem. They call it the state of nature.
Now, just to be clear, this isn't some actual historical period like the Bronze Age or something. It's a concept, right? A thought experiment. It's designed to help us strip away all the layers of society and figure out why we organize ourselves in the first place.
So, let's bring in our first major thinker on this, Thomas Hobbes. Now, Hobbes lived through the absolute chaos of the English Civil War, and seeing that violence and uncertainty firsthand gave him let's just say, a very pessimistic view of what people are like when there's no strong leader in charge. For Hobbes, without some powerful authority to keep us all in check, life would just become a constant war of all against all. He was convinced that we're all fundamentally self-interested, and so without rules, we would live in constant fear. His famous description of life? It would be solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Yeah, not exactly a paradise.
So if the state of nature is the big problem, this chaotic, terrifying existence, what's the solution? Well, the idea that rational humans came up with is something called the social contract.
You can think of it like a huge bargain. We all get together and agree to give up some of our more, let's call them wild freedoms, like the freedom to just steal your neighbor's stuff, and in return, we create an authority, a government, whose main job is to protect our most important rights, starting with the right to not live in constant fear. Okay, but this is where it gets really fascinating. While these philosophers all agreed that we need some kind of contract, they had completely different blueprints for what that government should actually look like. And this, my friends, is where the big arguments really begin. Let's start with Hobbes's blueprint. His entire model is basically built on one single motivation, escaping that brutal, short life he was so afraid of. For him, it's all about getting security, no matter the cost. Hobbes's logic is pretty simple and pretty brutal. The state of nature is total chaos. So, the solution? Everybody agrees to surrender almost all of their rights to one all-powerful ruler, what he called a Leviathan. This ruler's power has to be absolute to keep order. It's a one-way street. You trade your freedom for safety, and there are no takebacks. All right, so now let's pivot to John Locke, who came along with a much more optimistic alternative. His ideas, by the way, would become a huge influence on the founding of the United States. Locke just completely rejected Hobbes's dark view of humanity. He argued that even without a government, we're born with certain natural rights, things like the right to our life, our liberty, and our property. And the key thing here is that these rights exist before any government is ever even created. So for Locke, the government's job isn't to save us from ourselves, it's to be a kind of security guard for the rights we already have. We agree to give it limited, specific powers to do just that. And here's the really revolutionary part. If that government breaks the contract, if it starts taking away our rights, the people have the absolute right to get rid of it and start over. And finally, we have Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who basically came along and flipped the entire concept right on its head. He had a totally different take on both the problem and the solution. Rousseau kicks things off with this incredible, explosive idea. He says the state of nature wasn't some brutal war at all. It was peaceful, and we were free. For him, the real villain isn't human nature, it's society itself. He thought things like private property created jealousy, competition, and inequality, and that's what corrupted us and put us all in chains. So, in Rousseau's pretty radical vision, the goal is to get our original freedom back. And we don't do that by giving power to a king. Instead, the people are the ruler. Everyone gets to participate in making laws based on what he called the general will, which is a bit of a tricky concept, but it's basically about doing what's best for the entire community, not just what you want for yourself. So,
After all these centuries of debate, which blueprint is the right one? Is it Hobbes' security, Locke's liberty, or Rousseau's equality? Well, the truth is, this is a debate that has never really been settled. And this table just perfectly sums up the clashing ideas we are still fighting over today. Are people fundamentally selfish, needing a strong government to control them? Or are we basically rational and just need a government to protect the rights we already have? And what's the ultimate goal? Security, liberty, or equality for the whole community? I mean, this isn't just dusty old history. Think about it. Every single time we have a debate about government surveillance for security versus our personal right to privacy, we are just re-arguing Hobbes versus Locke. Every time we talk about what's best for the community versus the rights of an individual, we're channeling Locke versus Rousseau. These ideas are like the invisible architecture of all of our modern political debates. So, in the end, the social contract isn't some old document locked away in a museum. It is a living, breathing question that all of us answer every single day. Where do you draw the line between freedom and safety, between your own individual rights and the good of everyone else? The answer you choose doesn't just define your government, it really defines the kind of world you want to live in.